Welcome. Hello. Welcome to BetaCodex Live. I'm Ryan Erickson. On the other side of your screen is Niels Pflaeging. Hello, Niels. How are you doing this morning?
Hello, Ryan. Good to meet you for the 79th time.
Nice to meet you. It is every time is like the first time. You know, it is like we're I was going to say something about virginity, but I don't know that we necessarily.
Yes. I thought about one night stands as well for a moment, but 79th one day stand.
So 79th day stand kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a long extended romance between us here with this project, right? BetaCodex Live.
A fine romance. It's a fine romance. An old song.
Do you want to sing it briefly?
I don't remember that. I mean, I know that was a song. Oh, My Foolish Heart. That was the one I was thinking of.
Okay. That's fine.
Wonderful Bill Evans. Again, I'm atrocious at lyrics. Lyrics are not.
I'm not my strong point. They seem negligible to me as well most of the time. I forget them. Obviously.
Well, the funny thing is that the lyrics I do remember are to songs that it's like word salad. You know, like Yes, for example. I'm very fond of the band Yes.
Yes,
and many of their lyrics are just inscrutable, and you know, that's it. You know, justice to the left of me, justice to the right. You know, that kind of stuff. Anyway,
the title you picked for today's session is also, of course, borrowed from lyrics from a pop song. I will try to intone it for a moment. Yes. Let's talk about first, maybe. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about TOSD. I think that's more or less what they Spice and Pepper. What was the name of the band?
Salt and Pepper. Salt and Pepper. So let's talk about all the good things, all the bad things. I think that's what an invitation to do that.
Yes.
All right.
It's well picked. I enjoyed the choice. I mean, in TOSD, we often borrow from songs. We use "Get Into the Groove" by Madonna because that's very time related, and we use, what else do we use? Time After Time.
We haven't done Time After Time yet. We did Slave to the Rhythm.
Slave to the Rhythm, of course, the great Grace Jones song from the night. Yeah, that became the title of the first paper.
There's more. Okay, so there's Slave to the Chained to the Rhythm, which is Katy Perry song, which is a lovely tune. I love, very groovy. Chained to the rhythm, that one.
Okay.
You got Time After Time. Rhythm is Gonna Get You. Rhythm Nation. I mean,
that's an album. Is it a song by Janet Jackson?
It's
Rhythm
both.
Nation?
It's both.
It's also a song. I don't remember the song, but the album is fantastic. Yes, I love Janet Jackson.
And again, in the oeuvre of time, you know, of course, Synchronicity, right? Which is just a fantastic album. Best album ever. So as we now have some viewers here, that I'll cease from indulging myself and the musical talk, although I'm sure it will come up later. So this is our second, I think it's our second official talk on TOSD. And for today, I wanted to go a bit deeper into some of the elements of TOSD. You know, that we have the list, the conceptualizers, the realizers, the conceptualization, the realization, the okay point, talk to each other. You know, there's not a ton. There's not like a whole boatload of things, but there's some real important things.
Yes.
And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the list, right? Because that is something that if you are a Scrum person, you'll look at the TOSD diagram, which I would draw it if I could, but there's on the left side, it's the list. It's the stuff that you are going to do, that you are going to develop the software. And okay, so what's the big difference, right? In Scrum, you have a product backlog. You have a whole list of things, and that list gets, every 2 weeks or so, it gets broken up into smaller lists that you deliver in 2-week sprints. You know, you batch the stuff up, you develop it, and you deliver it, right? So that's the thing. And
you try to
but
deliver it.
well, you try to deliver it. You set a date 2 weeks in. It is a time box, right? It is a time box 2 weeks in. However, there's the level of, well, I don't know. We're going to. Why is it that time box just the items just kind of some they fly out, some they hit, some they don't, some don't get finished. They're not very punctual. Punctuality, that was something that came through. So
yes. By the way, let me tell you a fast anecdote. Today I got a message just an hour or two ago. I got a message from a guy from Zurich, a guy who I know and respect, very nice guy, Dirk, I think is his name, and he wrote to me that Klaus, by the way, is his name, not Dirk. Klaus, hello Klaus, if you're listening, and he wrote to me something that I have heard in the last couple of weeks ago once again, and he kind of accused me of Scrum bashing, which is not something that I would like to do, and I don't like to be accused of it either. I wouldn't like to bash Scrum. I think Scrum concepts are suboptimal. Yes, they are not so good. And it's quite obvious that they are not so good. So Scrum needs rejuvenation, but we have all talked about this for decades, right? For example, and you and I, we have a long history with Agile and talk about, improving Scrum and Agile, going back to the roots. It has been going on forever. Nothing has changed. Much to the contrary, really, the decadence of Scrum has been has increased over time. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been corrupted. I think that's been
corrupted. But I also like to invite everybody to think in this other. That's why I'm mentioning Scrum right now, in this other direction, because you make the comparison between the list in TOSD, in time-oriented software development, and it seems to look a bit like a backlog. Yes. However, I would like to. And then you mentioned, implicitly you mentioned that in TOSD, individual items flow from the list to conceptualization and realization. And in Scrum, or in most Agile, that's being done in the real world out there. From the backlog, you take a cluster, a bunch, a batch of items, stories, or whatever you have, pull them together into a sprint. And what I would like to, mention before we talk about the Scrum, the TOSD concept, is that the idea of sprints is really mind-boggling to me. Where did it come from? I don't quite get it, because Toyota doesn't do that shit stuff. They have single piece flow, and of course Waterfall doesn't. Waterfall uses phases, month-long phases, and the basic idea of the Scrum originates, it appears to have been, let's go from several months-long phases or year-long phases to shorter. But that's not a concept. It's just,
oh gosh, I'm
incremental nonsensing. It is not a good concept, and that's what I would like to tell everybody in the Agile movement. Scrum isn't so amazing, or even Kanban and Lean and Scrumban and whatever you are using out there. It's not so great conceptually, and you can call it lightweight as long as you want, but it's not lightweight as long as you need certification and all those roles and sprints and software development teams, which are a horrible idea. I hope we can get to talk a little bit about that. So the individual concepts and then the dailies and retrospectives, they are not lightweight, they are heavyweight. They are slightly
overhead.
Waterfall. They're overweight. Exactly. Good point.
Overweight.
I'm a little overweight. To be too overweight is not a good thing. To be a lightweight is not a good thing, I think. Let's make it simple. Let's make it single piece flow. And that's the idea behind TOSD. So individual items flow from the list through conceptualization to realization. And the list, you asked, how is a list different from a backlog? A list exhausts itself. It ends. It is like a statement of problem, and it's at some point it must be solved, and usually that point must be after a month or 3 months. Shouldn't be much more than 90 days. Yes, it could be longer, but ideally you will get shit done in 90 days or so, or 30 days or 20 days. So a list, you make it for a problem, a business problem that you have, you want to solve. And you put all the items. Of course, our first use case, Pratke GmbH, they started with a list that had like 300 items. So that's a lot.
That's one of the whole things, because it's, well, where do you get from a product, right? And then how you decompose what you want to have happen into, there's 300 things.
Exactly.
So that's wrong. The idea of decomposition of a feature set into what? So what's wrong about that? What were you arguing about? Not arguing about. What are you saying?
No, I'm not sure. We have to circle maybe around the problems. One of the big agile illusions has been iteration and cadence and minimal viable product. I think all these concepts are bogus. They might be very, very specific special cases, but usually your problems are not about minimal viable product or iteration of a product. They are just about solving stuff, creating stuff, fixing stuff. So most items are around those things, yes?
Well, and the minimum viable product, I mean,
that needs several items, probably. Yes?
Well, I guess I'm just going to go back to the minimum viable product thing. I think that is because in the prehistoric ages, when product teams and customers would be waiting months and months and months for any kind of iteration, if anything, and they'd be waiting. They would get a final product. They would get no indication. Again, this is years ago. I'm not saying recently, but that the idea. Pardon?
It's waterfall software development.
Waterfall software development,
or a new version,
or any kind of product development. You do the planning, the analyzing, the design. All the spaces that we know in software development. But then you would set some requirements, and then it would be a black hole for months and months and months.
Yes. So requirements are the problem.
Yeah, well, sure, and the requirements change rapidly, and even now that we said requirements change in the midst of a 2-week sprint. Imagine that they change in the 2 weeks. It happens all the time. But the minimum viable product, or some folks call a minimum valuable increment. That's another thing that gets called. But it's an improvement if you get something in front of, hey, this is a feature set that we can get in front of you in 2 weeks or so. Isn't that better than waiting 3 months or something like that? It is an improvement. So I don't want to say that there has been no improvement from the 1970s, but there's so the minimum viable product. There's several ways that can come into instantiation. But I just wanted to say that it hasn't always been bad, but it is a concept, and it.
No, Agile has brought some improvements. I think that's we don't have to discuss that because it's so obvious. I think that's why we're not discussing it. I think just the improvements stalled at a certain point, right? And conceptually, Agile hasn't brought up anything that worth mentioning. I think to create the grand steps that we all wanted to see, and that we still want to see, that the Agile Manifesto idealized or envisioned, right? And we are doing nothing more, nothing less with TOSD of suggesting a different way, one that is coherent, that is both philosophical and practical, and that and here's the thing. Of course, from the point of view of a Scrum person, educated in Scrum, you might think, that thing in TOSD resembles the backlog to me,
Yes.
But it's not. And one of the key aspects of learning is to doubt your own perception and to question and to distinguish things. And one of the distinctions of the list compared with the backlog is the list ends, it exhausts itself, it is being solved and substituted by another list. There might be several parallel lists as well. People will be, software developers will be associated with lists, but they can be moved around, to make capacity swing. Making capacity swing is very important in TOSD, and it is a concept that has never been aired in the context of Agile or Scrum, of course. This is complete to fix the time and to let capacity swing is totally new, to any Agilist. And if you tell me as an Agilist, I have done something very similar. No, it's just not true. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest to yourself. Nobody in Agile lets capacity swing. That's why it doesn't work so well. That's why we haven't broken the barrier of high performance in software development.
You're talking about, again, when we say capacity, you're talking about the capacity of a human being to do work, right? So that in essential. I mean, that's the way I interpret it.
Yes, no, it's part of changing the capacity. Yes, you can change the time that people dedicate to work. You can send them on a holiday when nothing has to get done. Yeah, you have to take a holiday now. Yes, or do that vacation that you have always wanted to be. You can also hire people. You can sack people. You can. That's all that changes capacity. You can say one of the things that we describe in our paper is that probably the biggest driver to changing capacity is to improve collaboration. I would assume that today, 2026, most software developers do not collaborate well. Supposedly, everybody is working in software development teams by now, but that's a big fraud. I think that doesn't exist. And people who don't collaborate well, they still feel isolated, I suppose. Communicate too little, too late. By the way, that's part of the problem with dailies and retrospectives and sprint planning and quarterly planning or whatever kind of planning and retrospective and stand-ups you might have. All that is gobbledygook. Or bollocks, as the British say. Yes?
Bollocks. It's
good. Bullshit. Talk to each other when you have a problem. Immediately.
Yeah. Why wait for the stand-up in the morning? Why wait for the review? Why wait for the retro? Why wait for planning?
Tell me how we have the best retros. It's too late. Yeah. People can tell me that they have great standards. You shouldn't. Yeah, talk to each other. That's what you should have at any time. Of course, you can have a daily ritual, but all this grandioseness of it must be facilitated. It has a certain structure. All that is kind of obnoxious. I think it's add-on the work, and the one of the concepts of TOSD to make things flow is to reintegrate the discourse, the dialogue, the conversation back into the work.
Yeah.
And so all this makes the list flow, reintegrating discourse into the work, making it ending so that there can be a sense of accomplishment frequently, every 30 days, maybe every 60 days, every 90 days or so, roughly. There should be a sense of accomplishment. Oh, we've done that list. We've finalized the list. We are done with that product or with that project or with that problem, and so we can start something different, and then people can be reallocated to other lists and other problems and so on. All these things are we haven't formalized the list stuff very much in the paper because we think it's obvious. If you think about the simplicity of time orientation, it's obvious that list should end as items should be worked upon in 1, 2, or 3 days, and the work should end every day, ideally on items. Ideally, some developers would finalize an item per day, right? That's the best rhythm because that's the most human thing. We want to finalize something in the day and sleep at night.
The day's work is done, right? The
day's deed is done. The day's work is done, and we want to get that feeling of accomplishment. That's what TOSD brings to people naturally. Of course, not always in 1 day cycles. Sometimes we think that 3 day cycles are necessary, but still, that's every 3 days at least. You get this as a developer. You get this feeling of accomplishment, and that's the most beautiful thing. Yeah, something that Agilists really never aspired to bring to people.
That sense of accomplishment.
Yes, Agile was never bringing a sense of accomplishment to people. It was
again. I'm thinking through all the principles, and that is, the individuals and interactions. The basic principle. It's a what you call it, a platitude, or it's a value statement.
No, it has become a platitude. It wasn't a platitude. I think it's unfair to judge that as a platitude. I think it wasn't a platitude. It has become one, probably, but that's not the fault of those people hanging out in Utah 25 years ago. No. Again, we shall not bash, right?
No. I guess I'm trying to think of the idea of this self-efficacy. I think you're talking about that. There was there's, and again, I'm going through my mind of the principles of that. Well, maybe someone might come in the comments. Robert Snyder is here. Hi, Robert. What I can't think of myself off the top of my head. What is a principle that was introduced on Snowbird that was about people feeling a sense of accomplishment and this sense of
anyway. Much. I mean, the guys at the time, they had the desire to improve the condition of software developers. That's out of no question around that, right? They wanted to take much burden from development teams or software developers as they saw it. So I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that the focus on time, the time orientation, is new to Agile. It's a different. It's a more, let's say, it's not an incremental thing at all. It's a different way of looking at organizing things. And it has a social, a humanistic dimension. It has, I mean, ultimately, we could talk a lot about the failures of Agile. Ultimately, it has an economic dimension as well, but we cannot. It doesn't make sense to talk about that today.
I want to get back to the list a little bit, because I mean that's okay. The product is in Scrum. It is composed of a list of things to do to develop, right? So the product has a goal, like the product is going to meet this state at some point in the future, right? So maybe in TOSD, we would say that the list represents that entirety of a product, right? And the realization of that in Scrum, it happens in these increments of the stories that are built up in the pieces. But in TOSD, the way I understand it, again, to cover that, you have this entire list of 300. Any of those things can come across at any one point in time. There's not this set sequence of the list necessarily. That the prioritization of the list is more dynamic, and that that's my understanding of it, because because in Scrum you say, okay, here are the 10 stories we're going to do. We have 10 people this week. Oh, we have 2 people out this day, 2 people out that day. This capacity is that. Oh, we can only do 8 things of this sprint, so we're going to do those 8 things and then get it done. Whereas in TOS, if you say, okay, so 2 weeks, 7 days, whatever, I don't care. We have a 3-day task that, we come together. This is the concept. This is the realization. Okay, bonk. And then then you review the list. Okay, bonk. And it happens much more in flow. Like here, we have capacity. 2 of us are here. We're going to work on this with you.
Exactly. And you can decide on the spot. But let's think a bit more systematically about the list.
Yes.
Beautiful how you just described the mess. The mess of development. Let's first talk about the sorting. So this list, if it has 100 items or 300, it will have a sequence. Exactly. It will have a sequence, and supposedly what's on top should be done first, right? However, there are 100 other factors. For example, as we discussed this at Pratke very early on, even before the whole system went live. Okay, you have a certain sequence that should be guided by logic, so the list owner has to update it. Can add. The list owner is the only person who should change the sequence and add items to the list, kill items from the list, review them with help of everybody else, of course. The list owner can consult others can talk to the list owner. So there should be updates. I call it combing. There should be frequent combing of the list.
Okay.
Grooming.
This backlog. So this is a Scrum thing, right? We talk about backlog grooming. We're talking about product ownership, and this is what I'm saying. When you say it, that's what my Scrum brain comes in. And
okay, it's okay. We cannot solve that immediately, but the thing is that the list, of course, will change over time. It will have to be modified and updated because things change, insight changes, and so on. But there are other aspects than the sequence, the mere sequence of the list or the items on the list that matter. For example, you have a developer who's junior, doesn't know those many things. You cannot let her or him develop an item alone. So you have to think about pairing people up, which is natural in TOSD. Yeah, you can pair people up in conceptualization and in realization. So you have to look around, okay, who is capable of pairing up, or who should be pairing up with that person? So which item would be a good one from the list? So you would sift through the list and look at a good item for those two people to pick. And you don't have, of course, you cannot say exactly who will be free at what time and at what hour and so on. So the sequence is one thing, but other things are people's availabilities, people's masteries, if they work alone or in pairs. There are 100 factors, right? So the idea of the sequence is not that of coercing people into taking the top items.
I choose that you do this first. You must do this first. This is my thing. You have to do it because I am the product owner.
Exactly. You want the list owner isn't a manager of the flow of items. The conceptualizers should think and go into discourse what items to pick for conceptualization, and the conceptualizer should also think about potential realizers for their items. And the realizers who have time, who don't have an item currently at work, they should think about, okay, whom could I talk to, the list owner or the conceptualizers, to pick the right item for me, etc., etc. So everything in TOSD is geared towards having conversation.
I think this is a very against a very beta concept. It's very much a decentralized concept that, well, I don't have to go through 5 different meetings to talk to you about something.
No meetings in TOSD. No meetings.
There's no there's no event that is set, that is defined as this must happen or you're not doing TOSD, right?
Exactly.
But a group of people who are collaborating on a software project, they can figure out when they want to meet, if they want to meet, however they want to meet.
They have a daily ritual in the morning, or one in the morning and the late afternoon, or whatever they like to. But it's not part.
You don't have to do it, and if you don't do it, you're not violating the rules of the game.
Exactly. You're violating the rules of the game if you have a problem and don't talk to each other. Then you're violating the only rule of the game. There's only one rule, in a way, in TOSD. Talk to, right? And can take any shape or form. But of course, the list owner is not supposed to steer the process. That's very important. The list owner curates the list, so to speak. And then everybody else should be in touch with each other and balance the needs. And of course, look at, okay, are we generating flow? And why not? And who should work on what? Meetings are wonderful servants. They are horrible masters. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. That's just wow. Is that from someone, Robert Snyder?
That's Robert. Yeah. I love
it. If it is his, then I have to steal it.
Okay, Robert, we're stealing that.
Beautiful. Yes. And of course, all this, when I see these books about how to do retrospectives and all these concepts about how to do the best, or LinkedIn posts about daily stand-ups, it's wrong. It's just misguided. The problem is conversation.
Yeah.
Quality conversation.
There are better and worse ways of facilitating conversation in a group. There's
sure.
Well, you can find. Well, again, I'm just because we're playing country in this band. If I have a jazz musician coming in to say, you have to do this that way, or the music of the group needs to be. We need to be playing the same tune, right? So my facilitations, I'm like an open space guy, right? I'm very, very loose with that.
I think in certain situations you need to gather all your developers, and if you have 100, you should do an open space.
But there's not either. There's some kind of form and rhythm to how a group of people will talk to each other, right? If you get together in a larger group, right? The talk to each other principle, having free conversation when you need to have it, how you need to have it, perfect. I mean, that's wonderful. That's the whole thing. But there are some situations where group dialogue and group sense making is appropriate. And
sure. It's what's not appropriate. What's inappropriate is steering. And I suppose it's obvious that at least some of the so-called rituals in Agile, like sprint planning or quarterly planning or the retrospectives, they are about steering ultimately. You can say whatever you like. Oh no, retrospectives are for learning. Then you don't need learning in 14 days intervals. It's ridiculous.
You should be learning all the time.
Are you joking?
Continuous learning. Yeah.
Exactly. That's not continuous learning. You can have a daily review. How did we work today? How did things flow today? Why did we suck? Why did we not, achieve the workload that we could and should have given our team size and
what happened? What happened today?
What was good? That's okay. But to have a quarterly, 14 days or whatever the sprint length is, retrospective is not. Don't tell me.
This happened last Wednesday. How do we prevent last Wednesday from happening again?
Exactly. I love this. This is great. Yeah, exactly. Last Wednesday was.
Oh, well, you know what happened? Oh, well, last Wednesday that happened. We need a new rule. We have to have a new rule.
It was James again. It was again James.
Oh, that James. What a dumb fucker.
This James guy is horrible. James, John, and okay. Yeah. He's a John Doe. By then, he's a John Doe. Isn't that the dead person in the morgue who's unidentified?
It is, the John Doe. The other one is the Alan Smithy. Have you ever heard who Alan Smithy is?
No.
So Alan Smithy, there's this deal that if you are a movie director, right, you're a movie director, you have a film that you put into production, it's been put into production, and it is just a shit show, right? So and then
the director becomes.
If I don't want to put my name on this particular piece of garbage, it has been directed by Alan Smithy. So that's the whole.
That should have happened with the Alien movie with Michael Fassbender, which was horrible.
Oh, which Covenant? Okay. Or there were two.
Yeah, it's a horrible one.
Prometheus and Covenant. Yeah.
Prometheus. I hated Prometheus. Oh my god, that was so disappointing. But okay, good. Anyway. Thank you for reminding me of that story. I had heard it before. That Arthur Sweeney.
Alan Smithy. Alan Smithy.
Alan Smithy. That's a beautiful name.
Alan Smithy.
He made a lot of Hollywood movies.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing. So talking about this again, the idea of the list.
Alan Smithy, by the way, great agile coach.
Alan Smithy, he's the best agile coach ever. You read Alan Smithy's book on agile coaching. Alan Smithy on agile coaching,
and one of the most widely employed product owners as well. He did all that in 25 years or 30 years.
Does it all. Alan Smithy does it all. and he who shall not be named and not be accountable to anything or to anybody. So another area that I wanted to talk about in addition to the list. I think that the idea of a dynamic list that is not that the decision, the prioritization is not steered, it is curated, but it is there's a sense of esprit de corps with how stuff gets off the list and gets realized. That's my
no steering and toss. I think that's the tagline that we can take from this conversation.
No steering. Yeah. Whose hands upon the wheel. The other piece of this that I was thinking about as we came to the discussion was the idea that what I had experienced in a large software project was that there were very few folks who had a ton of knowledge about a particular business process, who were engineers or engineering staff in an energy utility, right? So they knew all the business processes for their region. They knew how everything was done. They would know what a good process was for their particular piece of work. And they were constantly barraged that there were not enough hours in a week to put in the day that they needed to have to serve the needs of all the people. There's however many 150 people developing, configuring extensions to this massive piece of software, and that there are maybe only five, maybe six people who were constantly put upon to articulate the concepts. So when I thought about that situation, I thought, okay, well, if I'm a conceptualizer in this particular environment, what if I've got 10 different realizers who are coming to me for 10 different things at the same time? How do I manage that? What do I need to do? I mean, that my head says that that's an organizational problem. That's a knowledge sharing problem. But that's what I'm curious about. What would be a TOSD way of looking in that particular conceptualization overload? That realizers don't have enough.
But I think, of course, I do not know the project in detail that you just talked about. That happened years ago, right?
Yeah, years ago, 10 years ago or so.
I would suppose that part of that mess you are describing was due to the non-distinction between conceptualization and realization. It creates all kinds of problems, because mainly a stop-and-go problem, as we describe in the TOSD research paper. So it's very important. Something that also Scrum and all other lean agile approaches ignore is this distinction between conceptualization and realization. And some people just are not good conceptualizers. And some people are good conceptualizers, but they are not good programmers, or they might not be programmers or developers at all. So to distinguish the two crucial, let's call them mini phases of every item's creation.
The life cycle, right?
The life cycle of any items or any software development projects creation is that you need to distinguish the conceptualization from the realization. Because what happens, let's take the example of you give an item, a work item in Scrum to a certain developer, and she or he just cannot conceive it, conceive the work. And they might be dabbling forever, for weeks, for months. That's what happens all the time, in most.
And they don't talk to each other.
And then there's no talk. But after 3 weeks or 3 months, that person shows up and says, Scrum is bad, or whatever, whatever story might come, or the work is bad, or the tech is bad, or whatever. And the idea of distinguishing between conceptualization is realization, to give relief to developers who are very good at realization, and to focus those people who are good at conceptualizing on conceptualizing. Or, of course, you will sometimes have people with high mastery who can do both. And they shall do both in TOS, but at different times. You cannot conceptualize and realize at the same time. It's forbidden in TOS to do that.
For the same item. For the same item.
You can, a person can conceptualize an item until to the okay point, and then hand it over to him or herself. That's okay. To then realize. That's okay. It's allowed. It's not ideal usually, and it shouldn't happen often, but it's okay. It can happen. So to distinguish between conceptualizers and realize is a big relief. It liberates a lot of capacity. Yes. And also it allows you to sometimes shift capacity as well, because you will employ people who can do both, more to conceptualization and to realization. So making capacity swing is not as hard as it may seem at first. There are 1,000 ways to let capacity swing. Now, you talked about the overwhelming experience in that project you worked in or worked on, and there were too few people with mastery, and that, of course, that's a problem that no system can solve that all by itself. But of course, you have means to solve it. Pair programming would be great. A great means to that, and to have people, talking to each other, helping each other out, without falling into the trap of creating big debates and waste of time and big meetings. Training usually doesn't help. People just have to, as we all know, learning software development, becoming a masterful software developer just requires a lot of practice, a lot of trying and failing and so on. So there's no shortcut to producing mastery, of course, in TOSD nor anybody anywhere. But the idea to employ pair programming in a good way, to have means of sharing through the talk to each other principle, and consultation, and liberating people who are just bad at conceptualizing from the burden of conceptualizing. All those are very important concepts. And I think the lack of distinguishing between conceptualization and realization creates a lot of suffering.
Well, this is what
most software developers, I think, end up feeling like losers, and they are not losers. They are just very good at realizing and suck at conceptualizing, or they are great at conceptualizing but they suck at realizing. For example, at Pflaeging, we named one of for the very first list that they started with, we named one of the general managers a conceptualizer. He's incapable of writing code. He's not a developer, but he's a good conceptualizer. So how in traditional agile, it would be impossible to pull off, right? That also means you generate capacity that you can then let swing. Yes.
Yeah.
Not convinced?
I'm not. This is not disagreement. I was struck by something you said a few moments ago, that this had to do with partially the identification of people in the different, very specific fixed roles. Right. I am a business analyst. My role is to develop requirements. My responsibility is to talk to people. My prime value to a software project, is to talk to people, to understand what they say, and to translate that into technology terms. That's, again, what the business analysis role is. And that the software developer has historically said, my role is to just code, man. I'm just about the code. And I don't have to talk to those nasty, inconvenient users, know. And that's a very, very Theory X way of looking at it. Of course, that you are not capable of doing anything beyond what I tell you can do. So, but
all these roles in waterfall and agile.
Well, but the thing, here's the thing, and this. Well, yeah, but this is I don't know if it's necessarily a failure of Scrum, but when the idea of a business analyst comes, and then you do an agile transformation, and then what do the business analysts do? Oh, are we product owners? But we don't really own a team. But then we're on the software development team. We're software developers, but we're not developers.
All these roles,
all the roles.
They mean diddly. Authorization of people, and that then leads to stop and go, and to lack of flow, and to waste of resources. All these roles, including architect, PO, SM, OMG, TWA, it's all bonkers. All these roles are futile. By the way, in the paper, we don't highlight that at all. I think that all those roles go away. You just nominate conceptualizers and realizers. There's one list owner per list, and that's it. So it's not at all about roles. And you can nominate what we call the C's and the R's, the conceptualizers, and you can renominate them if you feel that we missed that this person is good at conceptualization. So you can renominate.
Well, the authorization process is interesting. The nomination and the naming, like who is authorized to name, who is authorized. Is this are we talking about a group process? Are we talking about what I'm imagining you're saying is that, here we are we are at this place, at this piece of software, at this point in time. Well, are the realizers doing their job? Are the conceptualizers doing the job?
I think it's very simple. Depending on the list you have, the list tells you what the problem is, right?
Right.
Because the list is the definition of the problem, so to speak, in terms
an authorized owner of the problem, right? Someone with authority.
And that person, of course, has the best knowledge to decide, together with peers or whatever. You can do that in many ways, but that person, list owner, will be best positioned, knowing the developers. Suppose that the list owner also knows all the developers sufficiently, that person can involve others and consult. So they jointly would go through through all the names, all the people, all the developers, and nominate them as Ks or Cs and Rs. We did that at Pflaeging, our first case, together with 5 people, I think.
So
we went through all the names of the developers and reflected, is that person more of a C or more of an R person, more conceptualizer, or both?
Was this the CTO that you did? Was Sebastian that you did that with?
List owner
Sebastian, Andre. Okay.
And one of the general managers at least would be present. And but you might, the point is who.
But someone there is a small group of people.
To nominate conceptualizers is a key issue, is a key point in setting up a TOSD system.
In the paper, it was very interesting what Sebastian had said in the paper. What was kind of towards the end of his thought was that it's so important that you choose the right conceptualizers.
Yes.
That you say the people who have. This is the whole idea of what do you do in complexity? You have people with ideas. You have to make sure people who have ideas and can articulate them well.
Yes.
And you have mastery, exactly, and that they can talk to the people who have the mastery in realizing stuff, in the engineering stuff. So this is the idea. But it's not steering to say to have an assessment at a small group of folks who have authority. Organizations have authority.
That's authorization. Authorization is one thing. It's not steering. Authorization is authorization. And if you authorize people to realize items, it also tells them that they must, in fact, realize.
They have a duty. They have a duty to do
it. Otherwise, it's not their work. So if they are realizers, they have to pick items. Take items, get their items.
They have to choose.
All about self-organization. Yeah, it's a marvel.
Well, and that's
possible if you move away from sprints and bonkers meetings, right?
Or dependency. The thing is that's so very interesting about that Scrum is this, again, not bashing Scrum, I guess, but the idea that someone chooses the items for you, right? That just what's supposed to happen is the developers are supposed to choose their items from the list, but oftentimes there's a project management impulse that's historical, that someone says, oh, you do this, you do that story, you do this story. And it is a learned helplessness that happens. Like, oh, sure, I can have this happen. But where we're talking about in TOSD, that's almost a forcing function to say, you're a realizer. You choose. You have to choose.
And of course, if you feel insecure as a realizer, you can of course consult the list owner. You can consult conceptualizers. You can that again, TOSD, maybe we are not making this explicit enough. TOSD is closely related to Beta. And Beta is about decentralization and self-organization and organizational democracy. So the idea is to empower each and every developer to decide on as many things as possible. And of course, pick which items to pick is a major decision. If somebody feels insecure, they can consult. They can ask. They can ask the list owner, what item do you think I should take? That's okay, but there shouldn't be any meetings or sessions around that. The sessions or why aren't things working the way they should be working? That's what meetings, if you have them, if you need them, should be about, right? They should be
there should be a reason to talk to each other. Right. So, and
there should be a problem. Exactly. No problem, no meeting. That's one of my preferred. We had this wonderful contribution by Robert Snyder.
Robert has been super active, and I feel somewhat guilty. He's got like 15 comments in there.
Wrote and pulled something up, but my related suggestion for a meeting tagline:
meetings are horrible masters.
Exactly, meetings are horrible masters, which is true. Which is why you should only set up a meeting if you have a problem. No problem, no meeting. Yeah. It's related, right, to what Robert said.
Yeah.
And in TOSD, you of course, if you don't have any problems, you shouldn't have any meetings. But if you have too little learning, you should have a meeting. And talk about it. Talk to each other. But not necessarily everyone. Again. Yeah. So the idea.
You don't want to mandate people to do stuff.
Exactly.
Everyone must come to this meeting, or you shall be punished. You have to come to the retro. Oh, who's allowed to come to this meeting? Oh, the product owner is not allowed to come. No, the stakeholders have to come to this one. Oh, the developers are not allowed.
Yes. There's a lot of talk Agile about stakeholders, and they never show up. It's like the
complaint. Here's the biggest complaint that I hear the complaint all the time when I would go to the Agile groups. Often are basically they're just groups of Scrum Masters primarily, because the Scrum Masters are the one who care about the process, which is fine, which is great. You get it, but the biggest complaint I hear is we have a shitty product owner. Our product owner is horrible. They never do this, that, and the other. They don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, it's a big blame game. Like you don't have, and I think it just, as the Scrum Master, I'm not responsible for delivery. I'm not. Sorry.
Yes, I think all those. That's one of the reasons why in TOSD none of those roles appear, because they are all weakened. Right, product owners usually don't have sufficient authorization to decide anything, nor have they knowledge or competence or mastery or contacts, to talk to, or opportunity to talk to other stakeholders. So it's a really hopeless role. Scrum Master is a hopeless role. Agile coach is a hopeless role. All those roles are too feeble, too weak, they don't have.
There's no authorization for any of them.
Exactly. Which is why it feels like learned helplessness, as you well said. Right?
Well, that's I think the two about that's why the idea of a decentralized, democratized, federatized organization is so valuable. Is that, well, we don't have to have a named role to talk to somebody, right? In that there's a freedom there. And
freedom comes with the obligation. Out of great power comes great responsibility, right? And each developer has this great power of deciding things all the time.
Yeah.
Even how to write the code for Realize is very important, that they decide the how and not the what.
Yeah.
Realization, but the how, yes, necessarily. Yes. Very important.
Absolutely.
All that is in the paper. Right. There's some things that are not in the paper, because a paper like that cannot cover everything. Some things that we discuss here are well beyond the scope of the paper, but those things are in the paper.
I mean, it's like almost as I'm thinking through this, you probably have. There could be many papers, of course, right? There's each. I think one of the thoughts today was to come in. Well, there's. We're talking about the list. What is it about the list? How does the list happen? Who does what on the list? Who talks about the list? Where does it come from? Where does it go? When does it change? So all that stuff. And that we could, also then we talked a little bit about today about the conceptualization. What do you do when a conceptualizer has too much on their plate, or they're not authorized. Maybe they're not authorized to do something else. Oh, I don't have anyone who's authorized to help me. Or, so the idea is that there's a lot of depth to TOSD. It's a very simple form. That's on the top. I know what I wanted to say before was that we were talking about the roles, and and you said something really wonderful about the Scrum Masters. They're not to blame. The Agile coaches aren't to blame. They're not. The problem is not the people. The problem is the system. The problem is that the process that forces people into these particular names. They're named to do this. There's structures around that, and then there's the chess players who push the pieces around. And that's a game, and that's just a game that is not fit for human beings. So, but to recognize that and to
the idea in TOSD is really that everybody involved in software development should develop and test and document. Those are natural things from TOSD point of view. From a modern contemporary point of view of software development, you shouldn't have roles within a system of software development who do not develop software. Again, software development has two facets: conceptualization and realization.
So then you've talked about who writes test cases, who does the technical writing, who does the functional articulation. I think that much of that, yes, that's solo work. A lot of it is solo work. You got one tester who's going to do the testing. In certain cases.
That's Agile. That's not TOSD. In TOSD, you don't have that.
Well, but pieces of software, once they are developed, in order for a piece to become an item to become realized, a piece of code that has been developed, it does need to be tested. It has to be
testing
testable.
is part of conceptualization and realization. It's not apart from it.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying it's a handshake, not a handoff. Right? That I think was
the question at Pratke, for example. We did all those several sessions with the developers and talking to them about TOSD, and in every session the question again, and testing, is that an additional phase or something? And we would say no. It's part of conceptualization, writing tests, and it's part of realization, writing tests. So it's testing cannot be separate. That's the TDD wisdom that we have today, is to integrate. Yes. And do you need a specialist? If you need one, then that person should be part of conceptualization and or realization. And you can only have maximum 2 people conceptualizing an item and a maximum of 2 people realizing an item. So if you need that kind of specialization in the process, you have to embed it there.
Yeah, but you don't fix the names. You don't fix any of that. You're setting a different set of constraints around the process that allows self-organization to happen within those constraints. And I think that's the important. That's what I'm seeing there, is that you talk about, again, think about, the rules. Oh, you can only have 2 conceptualizers and up to 2 realizers. Oh, that's only. Well, that's it. There's a difference between a constraint and a rule. As far as I'm seeing it, that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes. And of course, again, one of the main observations or insights I had a few years ago was that software is never developed by more than 2 people at a single point of time. It doesn't exist. If there is supposedly 5 people mingling, dabbling with something, then that's not real work. They are just faking it. Or one person is really doing the work, or maximum of 2 people and the others are watching. All that is not software development. So software development is done by 1 person alone or 2 people. And again, it's reasonable to distinguish between conceptualization and realization. So you can have 2 people here and 2 different people here. You can also have the same 2 people here and the same 2 people here. After with an okay between, so separate time. But you don't never need more than 2 people working at a piece of software, an item, at the same time.
But that's, you have one keyboard, right? So there's the pair programming bit. You 2 people sharing the keyboard. Mob programming, I mean, that's another. It's kind of an extension of that. But you have multiple people in their brains, but they're all engineering types that are working on a piece of software, a piece of item. I don't know a lot about it, but it's kind of an extension of that, maybe extreme in some ways, but that idea of single piece flow is there. I forget.
I think mob programming as a standalone idea might be fascinating. But in the concept of time orientation, you can see the limits very easily, right? Because time orientation, it also acknowledges that sometimes it's best to have just 1 person working on an item. Sometimes you should have 2. But why would you throw 3 people at it?
So this comes, I think one of the things that did come up for me about that was coordination, right? So there are many interconnected pieces of a large piece of enterprise software, interfaces and real-time interfaces and other data ingestion points and things that I have to have. There's a whole flow of stuff that needs to happen if I'm testing, from data creation all the way through transformation, through processing, through dissemination, and then through some other kind of transformation at the end. That there's, by its nature, that implies that there are multiple items that are interconnected and interlocking that would need to be worked at the same time, potentially with
interdependencies, you mean?
Yes, very much so, interdependencies, and which is a huge issue in SAFe, as I'm sure you know, that people drawing the red lines across the board. And
yes. It's part of the problem of SAFe. SAFe produces all those interesting problems.
Yeah. So So when I think about that situation of coordination of coordination of complicated things,
Very good.
that if you're looking at it from top, well, okay, so we have 5 items that are happening today, right? So
Yes.
but the idea of how those items are chosen, that needs to be some kind of coordination. Say, what 5 items are we going to work on today? Not necessarily working on them as a unified team in one room at one time, like 5 people at the same keyboard like that. But you have items moving in parallel that are interconnected. And that's, I guess I'm trying to see it happen in real time. So which ones of these are 1 day, which are 2 days, which are 3 days, that kind of stuff.
But I think if you look at it, take a step back, interconnected, interdependent items, they are, whose problems is this? Whose problem is it? There is a bunch of items that are interdependent. Let's say 10 items are interdependent.
It's the owner's problem.
The list owner's problem, exactly.
Yeah.
So the list owner should figure out, okay, if we have these 9 items, then we need another additional item to connect certain things, or we have an interface and testing item.
Well, I mean,
this is not from software developer competence, because I don't have much of that. Yes,
you're a fantastic conceptualizer.
But let's assume that 10 items are 9 items are interdependent. You might need a finalizing item. That should be just 1 day, and that So that's part of the necessary mastery of the list owner to understand these interdependencies and take care in shaping the items on the list and grouping them in a way, or marking them as belonging to the same cluster or whatever it is, so that this can make sense. Because you don't want conceptualizer or realizers get drowned in this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that would limit velocity. It would make things slower.
You'd be forcing people to do things that they don't have the mastery to do.
Exactly, that they don't have necessarily the information to do, and that they don't have the mastery to do. Of course, in a way, your best developer should be the list owner, right? Or the best developers should be list owners, and or the people who understand the problem best and can handle the complicatedness of this.
Who see the interconnections and who are responsible for what the interconnections are.
Exactly. And of course, if you discover, oh my goodness, we developed those 9 items, they are interdependent, we knew that, but there's something missing, then you create another item, put it on the list, the list owner creates another item.
But you don't wait for 2 weeks to make that happen. You don't wait 2 weeks to make that happen. You don't wait till the event.
Put it on the list, and you might say, okay, tomorrow somebody has to do this item so that we can finalize that cluster and deliver the whole thing.
Yeah, because what happens in Scrum, I mean, it's what everybody uses. What happens is that if something happens in the middle of the sprint, it becomes a huge problem. It's like, oh my god,
something came. Thing, or this coordination, repackaging, analyzing. Oh my god, let's analyze more. Let's have an analyst analyzing the analyzers. It's all very wasteful, and very very tedious. You really want to say in TOSD, you really want to say, what's our problem today? What do we have to solve now? Is there something that we didn't know yesterday? Is there a problem that we realized now? Is there something we messed up? All this happens, fix it on the day, ideally, turn it into an item if necessary, but solve it immediately. Everything in TOSD is about solving problems immediately. Very simple, right? But it's
very,
also
very simple.
On a miss in Agile. In Agile, nobody.
Well,
these guys in Utah, the dudes in Utah, they didn't imagine that problem. Maybe with hindsight, it's all easy to say, right? With hindsight,
but this, it's like the issue with Taylor, right? With Fred Taylor, the world was this way at that time. Exactly. And that he was the right man at the moment to
and he wanted to fix a certain problem, right? That disorganization, soldiering, as he called it. So he wanted to solve certain problems, and others would appear later. So it's understandable what he suggested. It's not perfect from today's point of view, but understandable.
Well, it's the corruption of the best becomes the worst. That's a maxim that I've seen. It happens quite a lot more often now that I've heard of it. Like there's something that happens. It's a beautiful thing, right? Agile software development that we came to the mountain and this shall happen. And wow, we these 4 values and 12 principles are great. Things are working better now. It feels better. And then eventually, there's some dynamics that happen. Oh, you have to do this way. If you don't do it that way, no, you must do this. The churches, the priests of the Agile Church come to say, no, you have sinned, and now nasty on you.
Well, I think what was interesting for me personally, a great learning experience when we wrote the paper, the TOSD research paper, was I had the idea of putting together a list of friends of TOSD, and I asked Sebastian to write it up because I do not know so many software development concepts, and he wrote it up within a day. He had that list delivered to me. And it was very interesting to me, some of the problems, concepts like pair programming, TTD, they were obvious to me that they were part of the list, but there were some concepts that were surprising to me. And then I researched them, I looked them up, and also Sebastian included stuff like cell structure design, relative targets, which are key enablers of any TOSD system. Or key that can potentialize the effects of a TOSD system, so to speak. Yeah. So it's important to understand. Okay, TOSD advocates that certain things that we learned in waterfall software development or in agile software development, they do not have that much value. They do not work well enough. They should be put on the garbage heap of history or abandoned. And then there are other practices, the good practices we know about today, like TTD, pair programming, and so on. They naturally should be combined with TOSD. Okay, you should do them in TOSD. So we don't have to reinvent the technicalities of software development. We just have to the frameworks. We must get rid of them.
Get the process out of the way, and all of the development time. This is continuous integration, continuous deployment, the DevOps thinking. I mean, all that stuff.
Exactly. All that's on a list of.
And one of the again, an issue that I'm realizing we're already an hour in, and I'm now thinking of new things to talk about. There's more to talk about. Let's talk about TOSD part 2, part 3. The thing that came to mind was about change control, change management boards. Oh, we have this software release is coming up this month, and we've got to put it all together and do all the phases of testing, the 3 rounds of user acceptance testing, and we got to go back to do integration testing and this testing and this using, and then we blast this thing into the world. And well, before you blast that thing in the world, you got to come to the change control board and show this, that, and the other that you have done the software development right. So that is a norm that has developed and that has been a bane of agile software developers for a long time as well. And so I think there's work yet to be done, and I think what I'm leaving here with also is that TOS as a system of getting developers and conceptualization and realization paired and working beautifully in flow is fantastic, and that there's also the structure around it. You talked about, Sebastian, saying about cell structure design and about relative targets. That release I don't need to be that folks in authority don't necessarily need to be in control of these events, right? This release happens in, this release happens out, that there can be more agreement. But I'm change control boards like, oh crap, how is a TOSD organization, software organization gonna navigate the change control board? So I don't know if that's something that ever came up in the conversation.
No, it was an original discussion point. Now I think I hear the name change control board for the first time. I've heard other denominations or other words around those things. What happens to deliver the product to the client, right? Between realization and deployment.
It's governance. I think maybe that it's your software governance.
Yes, and there are many concepts. I don't want to be definitive here, but what Kafka has done was to eliminate all the barriers to deployment.
Yeah.
So there's no additional approval level. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So as software development has advanced over the last few years, there have been different philosophies of how to deliver best and most frequently. And Pratke opted for eliminating the approval board and the approval process, and the 4, 6, 8I principles and so on, to make developers more responsible of their work. Which relates back to the OK point and the list. The quality of the list must be good. The concepts must be good. The OK point is holy, The delivery time is holy, but also the quality must be holy. So how do you hold that up? By not creating any approval mechanisms at the end. This, I think, is modern software development. It requires, that you put the quality in the process. Very Toyota-like, this whole thing, right? But if you have final testing, final approvals, and so on, that's not Toyota. So they have to put the testing, the quality assurance in the process. Is it easy to qualify all developers in that way? Maybe not.
It's not convenient. It's not convenient.
Exactly. Maybe it's more inconvenient, but it is necessary. Yeah.
Right.
And if you have a quality problem at a certain point, then of course you need to look at your homework again and go to the roots instead of blaming the developer. You fucked up.
It's your fault. You fixed it.
About this to happen. And that's exactly what Kaizen at Toyota is about: this continuous improvement, continuous reflection. Setting up the system so that it's foolproof in a way. Yeah. And that is the mastery in TOSD that, of course, every software development group or team will want to accomplish. To not just have a TOSD system, but to be really excellent at it.
Yeah.
To have the fastest learning, the best flow.
Making better music.
And better software.
Better software.
Exactly. And more, and to increase the total sum of smiles, as we like to say.
The total sum of smiles. The smile quotient.
That's the Weichselbaum principle, right? Always act in such a way that you improve that you maximize the total sum of smiles.
Well, what would Weichselbaum do? What would Weichselbaum do?
That's one of the things. Yeah. Soon to appear.
I'm trying to clue you in, or to clue the.
Soon to appear in a book. But it's in the paper. I think in the paper. This quote is in the paper as well. In the TOSD paper. Excellent. This was a wonderful conversation. I hope we clarified or obfuscated everything.
I hope we created many new questions that have launched curiosities into the world about what is TOSD? Why does it matter, and why is it important?
Yes, and why should Scrum be tossed out of the window? Wordplay? You notice?
Scrum should be tossed out
of the window.
Oh, that sounds like a Substack article.
It sounds a little bit like bashing, and we don't want that.
Yeah. No bashing. Yeah. All right, bashing and mashing. All right, everybody. This has been BetaCodex Live, episode 79. So, episode 80 coming up very soon. I'm Ryan Erickson. It's Niels Pflaeging over there. You're on Substack in many different places. News from the beta world as well. The Red 42's Substack that you have. On my Substack now is purplesquirrel.cafe. You can go to purplesquirrel.cafe. You hit my Substack, which is fun. And we are both on YouTube. We're everywhere you want to be. We're like Visa. We're everywhere you want to be. So with that, my dear friend, I will see you in the green room after this. And for those of you out there, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. And peace, love, and music to all of you.